Chapter 20. I battle my jerk relative. A Coast Guard picked us up, but they were too busy to keep us for long or to wonder why three kids in street clothes got in the middle of the bay. There was a disaster to mop up. Their radios were jammed with distress calls. They dropped us off at Santa Monica Pier with towels around our shoulders and water bottles and a junior Coast Guard and sped off to save more people. Our clothes were sopping wet, even mine. When the Coast Guard boat had appeared, I'd silently prayed they wouldn't pick me out of the water and find me perfectly dry, which would have raised some eyebrows, so I'd willed myself to get soaked. Sure enough, my usual waterproof magic had abandoned me. I was also barefoot because I'd given my shoes to Grover. Better the Coast Guard wonder why one of us was barefoot than wonder why one of us had hooves. After reaching dry land, we stumbled down the beach, watching the city burn against the beautiful sunrise. I felt as if I was watching the city burn against the beautiful sunrise. I felt as if I'd just come back from the dead, which I kind of had. My backpack was heavy with Zeus's master bolt. My heart was even heavier from seeing my mother. I don't believe it, Annabeth said. We went all the way. It was a trick, a strategy worthy of Athena. Hey, she warned. You get it, don't you? She dropped her eyes, her anger fading. Yeah, I get it. Well, I don't, Grover complained. But somebody, Percy, Annabeth said, I'm sorry about your mother. I'm so sorry. I pretended not to hear her. If I talked about my mother, I was going to start crying like a little kid. The prophecy was right, I said. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. But it wasn't Hades. Hades did not want war among the big three. Someone else pulled off the theft. Someone stole Zeus's master bolt and Hades' helm and framed me because I'm Poseidon's kid. Poseidon will get blamed by both sides. By sundown today, there will be a three-way war, and I'll be the one who caused it. Grover shook his head mystified. But who would be that sneaky? Who would want war that bad? I stopped in my tracks, looked down at the beach. Gee, let me think. There he was, waiting for us in the back leather duster and his sunglasses, and an aluminum baseball bat propped on his shoulder. His motorcycle rumbled behind him, its headlight turning the sand red. Hey, kid, Ares said, seeming genuinely pleased to see me. You were supposed to die. You tricked me, I said. You stole the helm and the master bolt. Ares grinned. Well, now I didn't steal them personally. Gods taking each other's symbols of power. That's a big no-no. But you're not the only hero in the world who can run some errands. Who did you use? Did you use Clarice? She was there for the winter solstice. The idea seemed to amuse him. It doesn't matter. Point is, kid, you're impeding the war effort. See, you've got to die in the underworld. Then old Seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Corpse Breath will have Zeus's master bolt, so Zeus will be mad at him. And Hades is still looking for this. From his pocket, he took out a ski cap in kind bank robbers wear and placed it between the handlebars on his bike. Immediately, the cap transformed into an elaborate bronze war helmet. The helm of darkness, Grover gasped. Exactly, Ares said. And where was I? Oh, yeah, Hades will be mad at both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took him. Pretty soon, we got a nice little three-way slugfest going. But they're your family, Annabeth protested. Ares shrugged. Best kind of war, always the bloodiest. Nothing like watching your relatives fight, I always say. You gave me the backpack in Denver, I said. The master bolt was in there the whole time. Oh, yes and no. It's probably too complicated for your little mortal mind to follow. But the backpack in the master bolt's sheath just morphed a bit. The bolt is connected to it, sort of like that sword you got, kid. It always returns to your pocket, right? I wasn't sure how Ares knew about that, but I guess a god of war would have to make it his business to know about weapons. Anyway, Ares continued, I tinkered with the magic bit, so the bolt would only return to the sheath once you reach the underworld. You get close to Hades, bingo! You got mail. If you died along the way, no loss. I still have the weapon. But why not just keep the master bolt for yourself, I said. Why send it to Hades? Ares got a twitch in his jaw. For a moment, it was almost as if they were listening to another voice deep inside the head. Why didn't I get, with that kind of firepower? He held the transfer 1 second, 2 seconds. I exchanged nervous looks with Annabeth. Aries' face cleared. I didn't want the trouble. Better to have you caught red-handed holding the thing. You're lying, I said. Sending the boat back to the underworld wasn't your idea, was it? Of course it was! Smoke drifted from the sunglasses as if they were about to catch fire. You didn't order the theft, I said. Someone else sent a hero to steal the 2 items. Then when Zeus sent you to hunt him down, you caught the thief. But you didn't turn him over to Zeus. Something convinced you to let him go. You kept the items until another hero could come along and complete the delivery. The thing about the pit ordering you around, I'm the war! I take orders from no one. I don't have dreams. I hesitated. Who said anything about dreams? Aries looked agitated, but he tried to cover it with a smirk. Let's go back to the problem at hand, kid. You're alive. I can't have you taking that boat to Olympus, so you might get that hard-headed idiot to listen to you. So I've got to kill you. Nothing personal. He snapped his finger. The sand exploded at his feet, and out charged a wild boar, even larger and uglier than the one whose head hung above the door in Cabin 7 at Camp Half-Blood. The beast pawed the sand, glaring at me with beady eyes, as it lowered its razor-sharp tusk and waited for the command to kill. I stepped into the surf. Fight me yourself, Aries. He laughed, but I heard a little edge in his laughter of uneasiness. You only got one talent, kid, running away. You ran from the Chimera. You ran from the underworld. So you don't know what it takes. You scared? I said. And your adolescent dreams. But his sunglasses were starting to melt from the heat in his eyes. No direct involvement. Sorry, kid. You're not my level. Annabeth said, Percy, run! The giant boar charged, but I was done running from monsters, or Hades, or Ares, or anybody. As the boar rushed me, I uncapped my pen and sidestepped. Riptide appeared in my hands. I slashed upward. The boar's severed right tusk fell at my feet, while the disoriented animal charged into the sea. I shouted, Wave! Immediately, a wave surged up out of nowhere and engulfed the boar, wrapping around it like a blanket. The beast squealed once in terror. Then it was gone, swallowed up by the sea. I turned back to Ares. Are you going to fight me now, I said, or are you going to hide behind another pet pig? Ares' face was purple with rage. Watch it, kid! I could turn you into a cockroach, I said, or a tapeworm. Yeah, I'm sure. That would save you from getting your godly hide whipped, wouldn't it? Flames danced around the top of the glasses. Oh, man, you are really asking to be smashed into grease spit. If I lose, turn me into anything you want. Take the bolt if I win. The helm and the bolt are mine, and you have to go away. Ares sneered. He swung the baseball bat off his shoulder. How would you like to be smashed? Classic or modern? I showed him my sword. That's cool, dead boy. Classic it is. The baseball bat changed into a huge 2-headed sword. The hilt was a large silver skull with a ruby in its mouth. Percy, Annabeth said, don't do this. He's a god. He's a coward, I told her. She swallowed. Wear this at least for luck. She took off her necklace with her 5 years' worth of camp beads and ring from her father and tied it around my neck. Reconciliation, she said. Athena and Poseidon together. My face felt a little warm, but I managed to smile. Thanks. And take this, Grover said. He handed me a flattened tin can that he probably had been saving in his pocket for 1,000 miles. The satyrs stand behind you. Grover, I don't know what to say. He patted me on the shoulder. I shifted the tin can to my back pocket. You all done saying goodbye? Ares came toward me with his black leather duster trailing behind him, his sword glittering like fire in the sunrise. I've been fighting for eternity, kid. My strength is unlimited, and I cannot die. What have you got? Smaller ego, I thought. But I said nothing. I kept my feet on the surf, backing into the water with my ankles. I thought about what Annabeth had said in Denver Diner so long ago. Ares has strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. He cleaved downward at my head, but I wasn't there. My body thought for me. The water seemed to push me into the air as I catapulted over him, slashing as I came down, but Ares was just as quick. He twisted, and the strike that should have caught him directly in the spine was deflected off the end of his sword's hilt. He grinned, not bad, not bad. He slashed again, and I was forced to jump onto dry land. I tried to sidestep to get back in the water, but Ares seemed to know what I wanted. He outmaneuvered me, pressing so hard I had to put in concentration or not getting sliced into pieces. I tried backing away from the surf. I couldn't find any openings to attack. The sword had to reach several feet longer than Riptide. Getting close, Luke once told me over a sword class. When you got a shoulder blade, getting close. I stepped inside and thrust, but Ares was waiting for that. He knocked my blade out of my hand and kicked me in the chest. I went airborne, 20, maybe 30 feet. I would have broken my back if I hadn't crashed into a soft sand of a dune. Patsy! Annabeth yelled, the cops! I was seeing double. My chest felt like it had been hit with a battered ram, but I managed to get back to my feet. I couldn't look away from Ares for fear he'd slice me in half. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw red flashing lights on the shoreline boulevard. Car doors were slamming. That officer, see! A gruff cop yelled. Hey, looks like that kid on TV. What the heck? The guy's armed! Another cop said, call for backup! I rolled to one side as Ares' blade splashed the sand. I ran for my sword, scooped it up, and launched a swipe at Ares' face, only to find my blade deflected again. Ares seemed to know exactly what I was going to do the moment before I did it. I stepped back and toward the surf, forcing him to follow. Admit it, kid, Ares said. You got no hope. I'm just toying with you. My senses were working overtime. I now understood what Annabeth said about ADHD keeping you alive in battle. I was wide awake, noticing every single detail. I could see where Ares was tensing. I could tell the way he would strike. At the same time, I was aware of Annabeth and Grover 30 feet to my left. I saw a second cop car pulling up, a siren wailing. Spectators, people who had been wandering the streets before the earthquake, were staring at each other. Among the crowd, I thought I saw a few who were walking with a strange trotting gait of disguised satyrs. They were shimmering forms of spirits too, as if the dead had risen in Hades to watch the battle. I heard the flap of leathery wings circling somewhere above. More sirens. I stepped farther into the water, but Ares was fast. The tip of the blade ripped the sleeve and grazed my forearm. A police voice on a megaphone said, drop the guns! Step out of the ground now! Guns. I looked at Ares' weapon and it seemed to be flickering. It must have looked like a shotgun, but instead of a two-handed sword. I didn't know what the humans were seeing in my hands, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't make them like me. Ares turned to glare at our spectators, which gave them a moment to breathe. There were 5 police cars now and a line of officers crouching behind them, pistols trained on us. This is a private matter! Ares bellowed, be gone! He swept his hand and a wall of red flame rolled across the patrol car. The police barely had time to dive for cover before their vehicles exploded. The crowd behind them scattered, screaming. Ares roared with laughter. Let's add you to that little barbecue. He flashed. I deflected the blade. I got close enough to strike, tried to fake him out with a feint, but my blow was knocked aside. The waves were hitting me in the back now. Ares was up to his thighs, wading in after me. I felt the rhythm of the sea, the waves growing larger as the tide rolled in. And suddenly I had an idea. Little waves, I thought, and the water behind me seemed to recede. I was holding back the tide by force or will. But tension was building, like carbonation behind a cork. Ares came forward, grinning confidently. I lowered my blade as if I were too exhausted to go on. Wait for it, I told the sea. The pressure now was almost lifting me off my feet. Ares raised his sword. I released the tide and jumped, rocketing straight over Ares on a wave. A 6-foot wall of water smashed him full in the face, leaving him cursing and sputtering with a mouthful of seaweed. I landed behind him with a splash and feinted toward his head. And as I'd done before, he turned in time to raise his sword, but this time he was disoriented. He didn't anticipate the trick. I changed direction, lunged to the side, and stabbed Riptide straight down into the water, sending the point through the god's heel. The roar that followed made Hades' earthquake look like a mirror event. The very sea was blasted back from Ares, leaving a wet circle of sand 50 feet wide. Ichor, the golden blood of the gods, flowed from the gash on the god's boot. The expression on his face was beyond hatred. It was pain, shock, complete disbelief that he had been wounded. He limped toward me, muttering ancient Greek curses. Something stopped him. It was a cloud covering the sun, but worse, light faded. Sound and color drained away. A cold, heavy presence passed over the beach, slowing time, dropping the temperature to freezing, and making me feel like life was hopeless. Fighting was useless. The darkness lifted. Aries looked stunned. Police cars were burning behind us. The crowd of spectators fled. Annabeth and Grover stood on the beach in shock, watching as the water flooded back around Aries' feet, his glowing golden ichor dissipating in the tide. Aries lowered his sword. You have made an enemy, godling, he told me. You have sealed your fate. Every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success, you will feel my curse. Beware, Perseus Jackson, beware. His body began to glow. Percy, Annabeth shouted, don't watch. I turned away from the god. Ares revealed his true immortal form. I somehow knew that if I looked, I would disintegrate into ashes. The light died. I looked back. Ares was gone. The tide rolled out to reveal Hades' bronze helm of darkness. I picked it up and walked toward my friends, but before I could get there, I heard the flapping of leathery wings. 3 evil-looking godmothers with lace hats and fiery whips drifted down in the sky and landed in front of me. The middle fury who had been Mrs. Dodd stepped forward. Her fangs were bared, but for once she didn't look threatening. She looked more disappointed, as if she'd been planning to have me for supper, but decided I might give her indigestion. We saw the whole thing. She had so it really wasn't you. I tossed her the helmet, which she caught in surprise. Return that to Lord Hades, I said. Tell him the truth. Tell him to call off the war. She hesitated, then ran a forked tongue over her green leathery lips. Live well, Percy Jackson. Become a true hero, because if you don't, if you ever come into my clutches again. She crackled, savoring the idea. Then she and her sisters rose in their bat wings, fluttered into the smoke-filled sky, and disappeared. I joined Grover and Annabeth, who were staring at me in amazement. Percy, Grover said, that was so incredibly terrifying, Annabeth said. Cool, Grover said. I didn't feel terrified. I certainly didn't feel cool. I was tired and sore and completely drained of energy. Did you guys feel that, whatever it was? I asked. They both nodded uneasily. Must have been the Furies overhead, Grover said. I wasn't so sure. Something had stopped Ares from killing me, and whatever could do that was a lot stronger than the Furies. I looked at Annabeth, and the understanding passed between us. I knew now there was a pit, what had broken from the entrance of Tartarus. I reclaimed my backpack from Grover, and I looked inside. The master bolt was still there. Such a small thing to almost cause World War III. We have to go back to New York by tonight. That's impossible, Annabeth said, unless we fly. I agreed. She stared at me. Fly like in an airplane, which you were warned never to do? Lest Zeus strike you out of the sky and carrying a weapon that has more destructive power than a nuclear bomb? Yeah, I said. Pretty much exactly like that. Now, come on.